Well, the title of the paper was long actually in the program, but let's go with Security and Privacy Challenges, Advice and Opportunities at Cybercafes in Kenya. It's going to be presented by Collins Munyendo. I hope I didn't butcher your name. Collins is a PhD student at the George Washington University. Let's give a round of applause to Collins. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I hope you are enjoying the conference so far. Once again, my name is Collins, and I'm very excited to present to you recent work that my co-authors and I did investigating security and privacy challenges and advice at Cybercafes in Kenya. So about 3 years ago, when I was just starting my PhD, I was back home visiting my mother, and turns out that my visit could not have come sooner. My mother had not renewed her driving license for a very long time. And this was because the Kenyan government recently decided to digitize most of their services, including driver's license applications and renewals. However, since we neither own a printer at home, nor is she tech savvy, she had in fact relied on public computers available at cybercafes when she first did this. However, she dreaded having to do this all over again. As much as I wanted to help her, I actually had no idea what her logins to this portal were, which is the e-government portal. Well, that's when she told me that both her username and password were just her national ID number, and she had in fact been encouraged to do this by the operators at cybercafes because this was the most efficient way for her to be able to remember the slogans. This got me super interested in security and privacy advice that's particularly provided at these facilities, as well as its impact on users' digital security and privacy. So what are cybercafes? Cybercafes are privately operated facilities equipped with computers and printers where customers can go to access the internet and perform other computer-related tasks. With the Kenyan government recently digitizing most of their services, cybercafes have become a very popular way to access these services just because most users in Kenya still lack access to personal computers or printers. At the same time, most of the customers at cybercafes may have never used a computer before, and they therefore face a lot of security and usability challenges. This motivated us to do this research. So more broadly, we were interested in addressing 5 research questions. Number 1, what are the most common services either sought or accessed at cybercafes? We're also interested in security and privacy challenges that customers encounter at these facilities, as well as the advice, particularly relating to security and privacy, that managers provide to them. We're also interested in general security and privacy concerns, practices, and behavior at these facilities, as well as both customers and managers' top advice for staying safe online. So to answer our research questions, we conducted 36 semi-structured interviews, and 14 of these were with managers, and 22 were with customers. To recruit participants, we physically visited cybercafes located both in commercial as well as residential neighborhoods in Nairobi. For the managers, we asked about equipment at their facilities, as well as services that are most accessed by users. We also asked about challenges that customers typically encounter, as well as the advice that they offer to customers. For the customers, we asked about services they most commonly use at cybercafes, as well as challenges and advice provided to them. So for the results, I'm mostly going to focus on the highlighted research questions. I'll briefly talk about some of the common services accessed to provide context for these results. But if you want to learn more about all our other findings, feel free to check out the paper. So from our interviews, we found that the most commonly accessed services at cybercafes are mostly printing, as well as government services. And this is especially the case because a lot of government services require users to actually go online. fill certain forms, print them, and then present them physically to the government department. Other common services that are also accessed by customers include job applications, opening and accessing email, photocopy, etc. In terms of the most common challenges that customers encounter at these facilities, we found that most customers particularly struggle with general usage of computers. For example, Manager 10 stated that most of the time you get a person, they don't know how to use a computer, and they tell you that I want to do this thing. Customer 8 similarly said that when doing things to do with government tax, filling my returns, sometimes I don't know how to go about it. Customers also struggle with setting up online accounts. For example, Manager 10 described how some of their customers are not even aware of which password they should use. Manager 8, on the other hand, indicated that some customers struggle complying with password requirements, which you saw from the previous talk, from different sites, and this often translates to other cascading issues. Several customers also struggle with accessing or recovering access to their accounts. For example, Manager 7 indicated that the main challenges are that sometimes the accounts of the customers are not functional, that they have been locked out because of lost passwords. Manager 10 similarly added that sometimes someone comes and tells you that I have a Acar PIN, but I don't know the email that I used or the phone number that I used to create the account. To summarize our RQ2, most customers struggle with general usage of computers. This usually translates to difficulty setting up and accessing their accounts, as well as selecting and managing their passwords. When navigating these challenges, customers often rely on support and advice provided by the Cybercafe managers. And surprisingly, most of the advice and support provided to users specifically relates to password selection. So managers particularly select passwords for customers, while others advise them to use passwords they can more easily remember. For example, simply using the ID number, and this is to prevent some of the account access issues that I just mentioned. For example, Manager 10 indicated that they select the password for the customer most of the time, while Manager 3 further added that for novice customers, in most cases, we just use a password that has a feature in them or what they have. In most cases, we use their national identity card numbers as their password or their mobile phone numbers. At the same time, some managers try to make the customer passwords complex but still memorable. So, for example, Manager 5 described using the first letter of the customer name, followed by their national ID number and full stop. Similarly, Manager 6 described using similar techniques, but by combining the customer's children's name and year of birth, as well as a few additional characters. However, making these passwords complex sometimes makes customers forget them. Therefore, some managers, such as Manager 4, explicitly encourage their customers to only use their national ID numbers to prevent confusion that can come when you use names or words for the password. Manager 6 described writing down passwords so that they can share them with the customer whenever the customer requests them. Additionally, some managers encourage their customers to save their passwords in the cafe computers for easier account access when they visit. For example, Customer 14 said that the advice I got was that they are able to save my passwords so that the next time I visit, I just go through without even asking. Interestingly, one manager indicated using a flat password for anyone new to computers. It's the same password for all of them. At the same time, we found that some of the advice provided to be contradictory depending on the cybercafe and manager's personal experiences. For example, some managers advise customers to avoid common passwords or not to save them in the cafe computers for their own personal security or privacy. Beyond account access and password management, Other advice and support offered to customers includes help doing the actual tasks. For example, Manager 11 said that most customers ask me to do the actual tasks for them as they do not know how to do them or are unable to do. M02 similarly added that some of the tasks are technical and can be very challenging for their customers. As loss of account access was a very common theme, managers often try to recover account access for their customers, but this is not always successful for various reasons. For example, Manager 1 said that the challenge that's usually hard to resolve is resetting passwords for users who've lost their phone numbers. Some people even forget their email addresses, and others have many emails but cannot even remember these emails. When asked whether they follow the advice offered by managers, most customers and managers were affirmative because for most parts, the advice or support that is offered has resolved customer challenges. Some managers further pointed to the trust that they've developed with their customers as reasons for customers following the advice. For example, Manager 1 said that they follow the advice because of the trust we have developed. Some will even call me at night to ask for their password, and some even travel from afar just to come and find me. To summarize RQ3, most of the advice and assistance offered to customers relates to password selection and management, as well as account recovery and help with actual tasks. Most customers follow the advice offered because they trust managers and view them as experts. Lastly, we were interested in general security and privacy concerns, as well as practices at Cybercafes to protect customers' security and privacy. We found that most customers and managers are worried about hacking, impersonation, as well as unauthorized access of their accounts that can happen, particularly in cafes, either because of customers forgetting or failing to log out of their accounts. We're also curious about concerns that managers have regarding customers, as well as how they use the facilities at Cybercafes. Most managers indicated being concerned about customers accessing illegal sites, as well as theft or fraud targeting customers. For example, Manager 5 described how some customers have been victims of scams due to leaving documents such as CVs that contain their personal information at the Cybercafes. To mitigate their concerns for customers, some managers indicated they log customers out and delete customer information after they are done using the cafe. Some managers clear downloads after each user session, though this is not always motivated by security and privacy. Some of them actually do this because they want to clear, they want to create storage, or just, they want to reduce storage on the computers. Others additionally have warning signs at the cafes to dissuade users from visiting certain sites. To summarize, most customers and managers are worried about unauthorized account access, and some managers undertake several measures to try and protect their customers, mostly based out of their personal experiences. To wrap up, we found that cybercafes serve a critical role in Kenya by enabling access to printing and government services. However, most customers are novice computer users and experience significant challenges at cybercafes and would therefore benefit from computer training and security awareness. We particularly encourage the Kenyan government to lead these efforts as they move to digitize all their services. While ID numbers make for memorable passwords, they are also required in many places in Kenya, for example, when performing mobile money transactions or even just visiting offices. This means that users' passwords may be inadvertently exposed. We believe that phone-based password managers could be very helpful, as most of these users already own mobile phones. However, the device sharing practices must be appropriately considered and can be explored further in future research. We also argue for alternative means of authentication that's more suited to these users' needs. For example, password logins, or even just writing down the passwords for customers as long as they're going to be unique across websites. Lastly, we also provide interesting directions of research for the community, including potentially exploring security and privacy advice in other countries and contexts to support broader populations. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm now happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Collins?
Yeah, hi, thanks for the talk. It's very touching that this research actually came from your real experience. And my question is not about like the technical part. I really want to understand the context. For example, you mentioned that in Kenya, the government is trying to push this digitalization transformation. And I wonder, you also mentioned in your last slide that the awareness of computer security or in general digital security is very important for this to solve these kind of problems. I wonder whether the government also puts some efforts into, for example, to educate kids or teenagers, like how to use computers. Because from my view, if, for example, if each family can have like a teenager or kid that knows more or less how to use the computers and how to set up like the passwords, it maybe can release a lot of burdens from the manager's shoulders. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you so much for the interesting question. As far as I know, I'm not really aware of any programs that the government is currently pushing to maybe increase security awareness. And this is one of the recommendations we actually make in the paper. And this could be as simple as, maybe changes to the curriculum to have some security-focused courses, or even just training the cybercafe managers, because that could actually have a bigger impact, because they'd be able to assist more people. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Osama from TU Dresden. And I would like to ask, why do you think that these 12 managers probably and 24 are actually representative of the whole population of the cybercafes in Kenya? And secondly, I believe you trust what they say. Is that correct? That you just trust what they are saying, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you so much for those two interesting questions. We definitely do not argue that our results are representative of the Kenyan population, because this was only done in Nairobi. But my hypothesis would actually be that in rural areas, maybe users actually struggle more. But we do not claim our results to be representative, but we believe that they actually highlight what potentially happens at those facilities. In regards to your second question, that's an inherent limitation with qualitative studies. You have to trust what the participants are saying. But I do believe that maybe some managers might not have admitted to maybe some practices that might be considered undesirable. So, for example, some managers told us that some customers will approach them and actually ask them to maybe disable their partners, for example, Facebook accounts. And so maybe this is something that some of the managers do actually, in fact, do if they are financially motivated, but no one in our study actually mentioned it. Some managers did admit that sometimes they will be hesitant to assist customers so that they can spend more time at the cybercafe and subsequently more money, but this was in the minority.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
We just have time for one last question. Others, please, contact the author after the talk. Go ahead.
Thanks. Matthew Wright, Rochester Institute of Technology. Love the talk. You have a lot of recommendations, and I know you don't have all the answers, but have you approached the government and discussed, tried to reach out with any of these, and have you gotten any response?
Yes, interesting question. I've not tried to approach the government just yet, but hopefully they'll be able to see this research and maybe do something. But no, I haven't tried to.
I hope you do.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to Collins. Thank you.